Alright, welcome to the help video for quiz 2.09. So here's your need to know info. We're still dealing with volume, and again, all of your volume formulas are on your geometry formula sheet. So that's where they're located, and I just blew them up a little bit here so that you could see them. Today we're talking about volume of a sphere. And a sphere is a three-dimensional circle. It's like a ball is a sphere. All right, we're still dealing with radius and diameter. Remember, diameter is all the way across the circle and the radius is halfway. So let's jump right into some problems. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, actually, before we do that, notice in the sphere's formula, it says radius cubed. It is the only formula that has radius cubed, and that gets missed very often. A super common mistake is for people to put 4/3 times pi times radius squared. That's going to mess you up every time. Make sure that for a sphere you are dealing with the cube of the radius. Okay, so now let's jump in. The volume of a sphere is 36 pi inches cubed. What is the radius? All right, so we're going to use our volume formula. Volume equals 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. And it tells us the volume, so we're going to plug that in for letter V. So 36 pi equals 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. And our ultimate goal is to find the radius. So we're trying to solve for the letter R. In other words, I need to isolate this one. So I need to get rid of 4/3 and I need to get rid of pi. There's two different ways you can get rid of 4/3. You can divide each side by 4/3, or you can multiply by the reciprocal, meaning that you can flip it and multiply. I guess I'll go ahead and show you what each of those would look like. They both do the same thing. So you could either divide each side by 4/3. It would cancel over here, and then you would get an answer over there. Or you could multiply each side by the reciprocal. If you flip that fraction, it would be 3/4. Either way, that's going to cancel out that 4/3. So it's really whichever method that you prefer. All right? And either way, it's a calculator problem. So you could either do 3/4 times 36, or you could do 36 divided by 4/3. They're both going to give you the exact same answer. No matter which way you do it, it's going to give you 27. So I'm just going to finish solving this equation over here, but you would have gotten the same thing if you had done it this way. All right, I'm still trying to isolate the radius, get the radius by itself, so now I need to get rid of pi. So I'm going to divide each side by pi, and it happens to cancel on both sides, which is nice. And then I need to get the r by itself. I need to get rid of the cube. The opposite of cubing something is cube rooting. So I'm going to take the cube root of each side because cubes and cube roots cancel. And the cube root of 27 is 3. And I should probably show you how to type that in your calculator. Give me just a minute. So if you have the TI-30XS calculator, which is by far my favorite, the way you would type in the cube root of 27 is you would hit 3. And then notice here in yellow, it has an X and then a square root symbol. That's the button we want. So we need to push second and then that button. That turns that 3 into a small 3. That means I'm taking the cube root, and then we can hit 27, enter. So the cube root of 27 is 3. I'm also going to show you if you are using a computer calculator. Okay, so if you're using the computer calculator, the first thing you would want to do is change it from standard to scientific. That gives you a lot more options. And this is actually the option that we want. So we're going to take 27, and we want to take the third root of that. So you would hit 27, and then that button, and then 3. And that tells you that the cube root of 27 is 3. So you got to know how to type it in your calculator. It's a little bit different based on which calculator you're using. All right, so the cube root of 27 we said was 3, which means our radius in this problem is 3. The next next one says, what is the volume of this sphere? So we have our volume formula. It's 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. And over here, it doesn't tell us what the radius is, but the picture shows that 9 is the radius. So we can go ahead and plug that in. 4/3 times pi times 9 cubed. And if I look at each of my answer choices, pi is in the answer. So I don't want to plug in 3.14. That's going to mess me up. I want to leave the pi symbol there, and I want to ignore it, completely ignore it. And I want to type in everything else in my calculator. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. But for right now, I'm only going to type in 4/3 times 9 cubed in my calculator, and I'm just going to ignore that pi. I'm going to pretend like it's not even there. So let me pull up my calculator. Alright, so I'm going to type in 4/3. You can either do parentheses 4 divided by 3, or you can do 4/3. And then I want to multiply that by 9 raised to the 3rd power. So I'm going to use the up arrow to raise it, and then I'm going to hit a 3. So I'm raising it to the 3rd power. I'm not typing in pi. I am leaving pi out, and I'm just going to plop that on my answer. So the volume equals, what was that? 972 pi. So we want to leave that pi alone. Don't put it in your calculator. All right, what is the volume of this sphere? And it does say use 3.14 for pi. So in the picture, they give us the diameter, and there's nowhere to plug in the diameter into your volume formula. So we want to make sure that we don't use the diameter. Be really careful about that. We need the radius cubed. And just as a reminder, to turn a diameter into a radius, you just divide it by 2. So if the diameter was 12, we divide it by 2, and our radius is 6. Then we can type it all in. It does say to use 3.14 for pi, and then we have 6 for the radius. And from here, it's a calculator problem. So we're going to do 4/3 times 3.14 times 6. And again, we need to raise it, so I'm going to use that up arrow to the 3rd power. And that's approximately 904.32 centimeters cubed. All right, a globe has a diameter of 22. What is the best approximation for the volume of this globe? So you have to know that a globe is a sphere. It never uses the word sphere. You just have to know that a globe is a 3-dimensional circle. It's a sphere. It's like a ball. So we are going to use the same formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi times radius cubed. We're given the diameter, so we want to cut that in half to turn it into a radius. And then we can plug it all in. Now, it doesn't tell us in this one whether to use pi or not. But if you notice in your answer choices, pi is not in your answer choices, and it says best approximation. So we're going to approximate by putting in 3.14 for pi. And then we're going to multiply it out in our calculator. All right, so if we type this in our calculator, 4/3 times 3.14 times 11 cubed, it tells us that it's about 5,572.45. So that would be our answer. Y'all good luck on this quiz.